Hello there, my name is Haley. Most of you know me as Haster or Haster the Otaku from my YouTube channel. I'm honestly not sure where to start. The majority, if not all, of this video will probably be unscripted. Truth be told, I'm only doing this video because my therapist recommended it to me. I thought it was a good idea. And I think if anyone out there at all needs to hear any of what I want to say and convey today, then I hope that it helps. I hope that they need to hear it, they get to hear it, and it helps them. I said my name is Haley. I am a 22-year-old woman, and I have, among quite a handful of other disabilities, I have high-functioning autism. I am on the spectrum. I am very high-functioning, so I do come off really normal. A lot of it has to do with my upbringing. A bit of it has to do with having good medication and good help, and a good chunk of it has to do with just knowing that I had it early on, and just how high functioning I am. I got really lucky circumstance-wise with what I deal with. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't deal with things. It just means that I've learned to cope, and I've been learning to cope my whole life. And so it's been easy to build up a foundation on how to go about my life dealing with what I deal with. So I thought I'd talk about, in a video for YouTube, what I struggle with and how I've coped, and just kind of give an idea to people of what my life has been like, so in hopes that my experiences can help make it easier for other people like me, or even for people who know those and want to understand them better or help them better. I'm sorry if I don't make eye contact throughout the video. I'm trying to stare at the screen or at myself or at the camera, trying to look forward, but I'll look down a lot, and I hope that doesn't bother people. I might fidget a lot. That's also something that'll probably happen. I'm not used to talking to a camera, and it's kind of weird. It's been a long time since I've ever recorded my face in a video like this. It's been many years. So, I guess I should start with my diagnosis. I've been formally diagnosed with autism, both to start with and recently. I got my diagnosis reconfirmed, all of them in fact. I'm not going to touch on any of my other disabilities in this video. I might, if this gets a lot of good feedback and there's a desire to see from my audience other things that I go through, that I'll come up and bring those up later. I'm not necessarily trying to hide anything. I've never been one to hide what I go through. I'm a very open book of a person. But I want to focus on the autism part. I want that to be the main focus. I don't want to get off topic, if that makes sense. I was first diagnosed with autism. In fact, the person who noticed it was the doctor who delivered me when I was a baby. He helped my mom give birth to me. The doctor who delivered me was the first to notice signs of autism. And I got my autism and all my other diagnoses age 3. That was also around the time, I guess I shouldn't bring that up, that's other disability. Point being, by the age of 3 I had my diagnosis, both for the autism and for everything else. And so in a sense, I didn't know then, and I didn't know till later, but my parents always knew I had autism. So they did a lot for me then in those years, and even after I learned that I had it, they did a lot for me that I think they did absolutely 100% right. And that they really helped me to become who I am today and to be able to deal the way I deal. Not to say that I deal with being autistic perfectly, but I think I got a lot better of a start, and I'm very proud of where I've come. I still have a lot to work on, and I'm nowhere near as independent as I'd like to be, especially when in comparison to my peers and people my age are out there doing so much more than I'm doing. But I've had to accept that I'm going to need not a lot longer, but I'm going to need longer to become independent and to do things on my own and to really grasp self-sufficiency. For me, that's going to take longer because of my disability, but I'm not going to let it stop me. I just need to accept that just because I'm not there there yet, like I see so many people are already there, I will get there. I will. I'm going to promise myself that. I'm going to promise the world that I'm going to get to where I want to be, even if it takes me longer. Even if I have to do things differently to get there, I'm going to get there. So as I was saying, I got formally diagnosed at the age of 3. I wasn't until I was about, and since then I've been going to therapy my whole life. Ever since I can remember, I was in therapy. And by the time I was 7 or 8, one session, I got sat down, my mom was in the room with me, and then my therapist was talking about disabilities and mental disabilities. And she looked at my mom and she said, "Can I tell her?" And my mom nodded, and she said, "Haley, do you know what autism is?" I said, "No." She says, "You have autism." And she proceeds to explain to me, in the best she can, to this 7 or 8-year-old child, what autism is. And I don't think I fully grasped it then. I think even now I don't fully understand it. There's a part of me that still needs to learn more about what that disability is and what it means. But over the years, I've gotten more and more of an understanding growing up with it. How do I put this? If you took a picture every day and your shirt to start with was one color, and then you slightly altered the color spectrum every day, so it looks like every day you're wearing the same. If you come in day after day, it looks like you're wearing the same color. But after a month, you're wearing a completely different color than for day one. It's kind of like that. Knowledge builds upon yourself the more time goes by. It doesn't mean that I didn't understand it then. It doesn't mean I understand it fully now. It just means that I have a better understanding. And even from 7 to 8, better understanding at 8 than 7. As I got to 10, I had a better understanding than where I started, and even better understanding from when I was 9. It just builds. But being aware that I had autism made it so much easier to learn and cope. I cannot express what I've learned just being aware. Because instead of not knowing that what I'm doing is a problem, or not knowing that I'm doing anything differently from the neurotypical at all, knowing that I have autism has helped me recognize, hey, this thing that I'm doing, it might not even be normal. In fact, it's probably something that stems from the autism. Okay, it's from the autism. How do I now address this in a way that can help me overcome it, or make it more, or help myself learn to cope with it better, to work around it, to do what I need to do to still be functioning and living life the way I'd like to without it inhibiting me too severely in a way that will keep me from being independent, to keep me from reaching my goals. How do I work with this? I remember the day I found out that people can't tune things out. When I was younger, and people with autism have problems with sensory. And so I heard, one of the biggest things is I hear everything. I talk very, very loud because I need to be able to hear myself. Me hearing everything at once and not being able to tune anything out is actually why I talk so loud, and people tell me that a lot. I don't know why I bring that up. But me hearing everything, I thought everybody heard everything and had no ability to tune things out. When I heard tuning things out, first few years of my life, of knowing about that, I thought it was a superpower. I thought that was a fictional thing that people came up with, like, what if people could focus their hearing on one thing and mellow out all the other sounds so this sound sounds louder to them than the rest. I thought that was a superpower, like flying. That was what it was to me, until one day it just someone said something and it just clicked. I was like, oh, that's just an autism thing. That's not an everybody thing. That's an autism thing. And it's not only helped me explain it better to my friends and family, why I talk loud, or other consequences of hearing everything, and why I go into meltdowns with oversensory, and it's helped me plan out my life better and understand myself better and communicate to others better. And I would not have known that, would still be struggling with that if I didn't know I was autistic. If I hadn't had that understanding from the start, I wouldn't be coping with it as well as I do today. And things like that in all aspects have really come into place for me because of the way that I knew from the beginning. And it's not just knowing. I really, really lucked. I cannot begin to express how lucky I got got circumstantialized. Not only was I given lots and lots of help and got told at the right appropriate time and that early on, I really lucked out in the parent department. My family, but my parents in particular, they went about it right. And I mean, they've told me themselves that at first, when I was baby, before I got my formal diagnosis, they weren't sure how to handle the fact that I may be disabled. It wasn't, and I can understand that. In fact, I don't know how I'd take that either if I were a parent in that situation. But they didn't let it run everything since then. They came into acceptance, and instead of moping about it, and giving up on me, they pushed. They found me the help I needed. What can we do for our daughter to help her become as neurotypical as possible, and help her achieve the things that she wants to do without letting this disability stop her from doing those things. We won't say it's impossible, because one of the things my father loves to tell me is, I know you're capable. I know you are, and I believe in you. That is the biggest thing my father has ever said to me. It sticks with me to this day. My mother has gone up to bat for me multiple times throughout my school life and throughout my adult life, and even to this day, she advocates for me. She lifts me up. She absolutely is my moral support, my pillar of strength. I think one of the most helpful teachings my parents did was vocabulary and the way they handled my meltdowns. When I was younger, I was very prone to having social meltdowns. When I went into the grocery store too long and oversensory happened and I just broke down, crying, screaming, throwing a fit, throwing things, just out of control. When things like that happened, when they'd allow me time to calm down, they'd help me however they could to calm down, and then they'd pull me to the side and they'd say, Haley, what happened? How do you feel? What happened to make you feel this way? Can you describe how did this situation make you feel and what's going on? And so they would do it in a way that I would have to really think about words that I was using and how to describe it. And so over the years, as we did this more and more and more, it's very frequent, my vocabulary grew. I learned how to articulate things way better than most people with autism would at that time in their life. People say that I have a very big vocabulary and I'm very wise, and that I'm very good at articulating my experience with being on the spectrum. And that is very, if not all of it is attributed to those things those sidebars my parents put me through, then most of it is. That was one of the biggest things, is being understanding and open to what I had to say, and making sure that they pushed me to articulate. They pushed me to use descriptive words, and they made sure that they really understood what I was going through, and they made me feel validated when I said those things. When I did manage to say, this is what happened and why it made me feel this way, they were accepting. Instead of saying, okay, that's bad, they said, okay, that's how it made you feel. I'm sorry you felt that way. What can we do to help you in the future so that you don't feel like that again, so this doesn't happen again? They were the type to work through it with me, not shut me down. They didn't shut me down, they worked through it with me. They helped build me up, they helped me learn to articulate, and that's helped me so much throughout my life, you have no idea. They don't have any idea how much that's helped me, and I've tried to express it to them, but I could never. That's the one thing I will never be able to articulate, is how much they did right. Not to say that they never did anything wrong. People make mistakes. Parents make mistakes in how they raise their kids. It's just an inevitability. But I think they went about it the right way. They've always had the right mindset, and they did most of it right. And I've had people tell me, I've known people who have told me that they're on the spectrum and that their parents weren't like that for them. I've had experiences in life where I've learned of people who were not so lucky with their parents, whose parents weren't there for them, weren't willing to help them, weren't willing to accept them. And I guess I could talk about those stories another time. I don't want this video to be too long. One of the things I'm going to get out of the way now is if you want me to talk more about my autism and describe things that I've been through, please let me know in the comments. I'd really like to help people if I can, and if this is helping anyone out there, and just hearing what I go through. And I haven't even started talking, I guess, I've just been explaining the background for it and giving context. But I mean, if I go on and you say, hey, I'd like to hear more of this, tell me. I'd love to do more if it really meant that much to people. If it doesn't, this video will flop and we'll go on with our lives. But I think a lot of it is going to be me putting myself out there too. And it's going to bring me a lot of closure. I'm going to take this opportunity. My therapist said do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to see where it takes me. Even if it takes me nowhere, I'd rather have tried than have not tried at all. And so things I can talk about would probably be the oversensory, what I experience, what's it like to live in my body. I do a lot of stimming. I could talk about stimming or just moments of my life that really were impactful for me. Right now, I wanted to give context, and I think one of the things that I think people will need to hear most, both on and off the spectrum, I want you to be aware of this. People with autism are capable of doing things neurotypically, at least doing the things that neurotypically people can. We imagine your life in every action you take as a road. And what is a clear path for the neurotypical has obstacles and mountains and trenches on the path for someone with autism. The paths are the same, but the obstacles only appear on those with autism. People who are on the spectrum will have to find ways to break through it, or find another path around it, or learn to cope in ways in order to reach the same goal. It's going to be harder for them. It's going to take longer. And it's going to require so much more effort from them to get to the same goal as those who are not on the spectrum. But they can get there. The point is that they can get there. They just have to do it differently. They just have to work harder. They just have to work longer. But they will get there. Don't give up on people. Don't give up on yourself. I've struggled a lot with giving up on myself and putting myself down. I struggled with depression for a time and being suicidal because of my autism more than anything else, because I felt like I wasn't worth it, that because I was autistic I would never amount to what I could have if I was born without autism. But now, at this moment in time, I can guarantee you I would not trade a single part of myself, not even the autistic part, for the world. There was a time where I might have wanted to get rid of it or experience life. And yeah, even now, if I could take one day without being autistic, I would take it just for the experience, and then I would take it right back. I would take the autism back because it's become a big part of who I am. My struggle has not defined me, but it is a part of me. I would not be the same person standing before you if I hadn't grown up with autism, being on the spectrum. And as much as it makes things harder for me, it might make things difficult, or even certain things I just can't do the way that I'd like, or do it all, it's been a gift too. Even though most years I spent thinking it's nothing but a curse, has been a gift, and I just couldn't see it until recently. And that's not to make light of the struggle people will have on the spectrum. It's more a struggle than anything. But it doesn't define us. And learning to accept that part of yourself will set you free. Don't let it stop you. Let it shape you. That's pretty much the long and short of what I wanted to say so far. I'll probably make a couple more videos on let me know what you want to see. If you want me to talk about stimming, if you want me to talk about oversensory, if you want me to talk about what if you want me to talk about experiences that have been meaningful in my life, if you want to talk about other things, or all of the above, let me know what you'd like to hear from me, if at all. If you want to hear anything at all, what would it be that I could talk about that will help you? Guess that's it. Signing off.